Yo, 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 what's up? What's up? What's up? I am back with episode number 41 of the Conscious Approach podcast. I appreciate everybody for watching. My name is JV Wins. And in this episode of the podcast, we are going to talk about people out here in these streets, dummies doing dumb shit. We are going to talk about people doing stupid shit. This is going to be the latest episode in the series of when people doing dumb stuff goes bad. And in particular, I wanted to talk about these fans at these NBA playoff games who somehow feel endowed to engage in dehumanizing behavior towards NBA players by throwing objects at them and spitting on them. These are over the last week, for anyone who is unaware, ever since the first round of the NBA playoffs started, we have had now 4 total incidents, fan-related incidents, incidents involving fans being aggressive towards players. We had the latest incident, Kyrie Irving, a fan at the TD Garden in Boston, hurled a water bottle at Kyrie Irving at the conclusion of the game. We had somebody who attempted to spit on or near Trae Young at Madison Square Garden in New York City during the series between the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks. There was an alleged not an altercation, but allegedly fans were saying, racially insensitive things towards Ja Morant's family in Utah during the Utah Jazz and Memphis Grizzlies series. And, we've just had incidents. And, the Russell Westbrook, there was a fan in Philadelphia who poured popcorn on Russell Westbrook as he was walking into the tunnel, leaving the game because of injury, no less. Not that that makes it any worse or any better, but there was a fan who said, I'm going to pour this popcorn on Russell Westbrook as he exited the arena due to injury. During one of these games, it was either game 1 or 2, or it may have been game 3. I forget which game it was specifically. During the Philadelphia 76ers, Washington Wizards Eastern Conference first round matchup. So we got a lot of people out here engaging in insanity, doing stupid shit, and they are being caught, prosecuted, rightfully so. But what I wanted to talk about with these issues was whether race has anything to do with them. Been watching First Take and some of these sports shows and even some of these news stories in the mainstream media outlets lately. And some of these pundits on television have been making the assertion that race plays a factor into it, or at the very least, they're asking the question, why is it that it always seems as though there are incidents involving white men in the stands, the fans, white men engaging in these behaviors towards black players? And so why does it always appear as though there is race involved? Even if you want to suggest that it's not, it just seems to always involve white fans and black players. So I want to address whether race has something to do with these incidents taking place, because I think it's an interesting point to make. The short answer to the question is yes. I think race does have something to do with it, actually, but not necessarily for the reasons that everybody might think. What I've been seeing going on is, there are 2 concurrent conversations taking place with this stuff. There is whether race has anything to do with it and whether these incidents are racially motivated. And those are actually 2 separate issues, but I think the media is irresponsibly conflating the 2. And each one of those questions respectively deserves their just due individually, in their own right. So, there's the issue of whether race has anything to do with these situations taking place. And then there's the issue of whether these incidents are racially motivated. Those are 2 different issues, and we need to make sure that we don't conflate those into one singular issue because they're not the same. So first of all, as I said, I do believe that race has something to do with these incidents involving these dumbass fans, and these NBA players. That's the short answer. Short answer is yes. The long, more nuanced answer is this. like everything else, man, when these situations take place, I find them interesting because if we sort of pierce the veil and look at it for what it is, it gives us the opportunity to really glean the current complexity of socioeconomics in the United States of America today. And this situation is no different. And here's what I mean by that. I don't know when is the last time any of you watching this video have been to an NBA game, but NBA games are expensive. They are not cheap. Uh, even if you go, even if it's a franchise that is a perennial playoff contender and has a very decent amount of season ticket holders, and the company is printing money on a yearly basis and not losing money, even if the team isn't going to win a ring, being able to get a seat for any particular game during the season for that franchise, it's going to cost you a hefty penny, even if you're sitting in the nosebleeds. I'm from Miami, Florida. I grew up a lifelong Miami Heat fan. Going to a Miami Heat game has not been affordable since the mid 90s. Ever since the Heat drafted Dwayne Wade and then in the subsequent offseason traded for Shaquille O'Neal, you can pay upwards of $250 to $300 just for a nosebleed seat to get into a Miami Heat game. This is not a cheap thing to do. Going to an NBA game is an expensive hobby. It's an expensive leisure habit. And obviously, when we're talking about people who have the ability to regularly engage in expensive habits of leisure, we're going to be talking about people who have the highest degree of discretionary income. People who work paycheck to paycheck, people who have to scrape, claw, and fight just to get by economically, people who have mouths to feed, people who don't run businesses, people who don't make so much money per year, juxtaposed to what their overhead is and what their family obligations are. People who don't make an excess of that much amount of money, depending on whatever your personal situation is, do not have the ability to partake in such expensive in such expensive leisurely hobbies. Being able to afford season tickets to an NBA game, to me, is tantamount to being somebody who likes to go wakeboarding, or who owns jet skis, or who owns a boat and likes to do some of this stuff. People who like to hike, people who like to snowboard. You know what I'm saying? These are expensive hobbies. People who like to canoe, people who like to paddleboard or kayak, stuff like this. Do you know how much it costs to own a kayak and to keep up with kayaks, transporting them back and forth to wherever you dock, so that you can be able to actually get in this kayak and enjoy this activity? These are people who are on the higher end of the median household income are the only people who can afford to engage in such habits of leisure. And going to professional sporting events is no different. Going to an NBA game, an NFL game, engaging in these expensive leisurely hobbies is expensive. And so the people who reserve the financial wherewithal to be able to engage in these hobbies are going to be the people who make the lion's share of the money. Now, if you don't know anything about economics in America, there's plenty of data out there for you to look up for yourself. But despite what any current literature might tell you, or what you think is going on out here in 2021, please make no mistake about it. There is still a very substantial wealth gap in this country that persists between white people and non-white people. White people might be finding themselves outnumbered in terms of the fact that other minority groups combined are starting to change the complexity of this nation and make it to where, compared to white people, the minorities combined actually outnumber the Caucasian Americans. But as singular racial groups, white people still, by and large, retain the greatest degree of generational wealth in this country. They also retain the greatest degree of median household income in this country. And I actually did some digging to actually back this up, because you always want to support what you say with some factual information. So there was a study done in 2019. The Economic Policy Institute did an analysis of current population survey, annual social and economic supplement historical poverty tables. This was done in 2019. This was a median household income study. Um, Asian and Island Pacificers retain $98,174 median household income annually. Now, mind you, that is all of the ethnic groups that are retained within the category of Asian Island Pacificer. So that isn't one demographic group, it is a litany of demographic groups. Them combined made $98,174 annually, according to this survey done in 2019. Behind them, you have these singular groups: whites, Caucasians, $76,057. Hispanics, $56,113, and then of course, as you know, which is completely predictable, bringing up the rear, my people, Black Americans, $46,073 median household income in 2019. That is not clarifying for how many people are bringing in that income in the household. It isn't clarifying whether it's whether it's a 2 income household, a 3 income household. It just breaks it down by racial demographics. Black people bring up the rear, $46,073 per year. Subsequently, in 2019, there was a survey done of family wealth by the Survey of Consumer Finances, and the study saw that there was they broke it down between median income and then mean income for family wealth. So this is overall retaining of wealth, not just median household income per year. And that breakdown was whites for median wealth retain $188,200. This was in 2019. Mean wealth, $983,400. I'll repeat that. Mean wealth, $983,400. Hispanics, median wealth, $36,100. So you see the drop off. And mean wealth, $165,500. And of course, bringing up the rear, my people, Black people, median wealth, $24,100, which is a joke. And then the mean wealth is $142,500. Now, I use all of that information to, stress the point that despite how far we've come with initiatives and policies aimed at stemming the tide of socioeconomic and economic disenfranchisement in this country amongst the races, there is still a tremendously long way to go, because it is very difficult to offset a 400 plus year head start of access to resources and economics in this country. It is damn near impossible, in my opinion, to offset that. But that is what that data tells us, is that the lion's share of the generational wealth in this country is still retained amongst white Americans, Caucasian Americans. Now, the reason why I bring up that data is, let's sort of extrapolate that for the purposes of this conversation around these fans in the NBA and why race has something to do with it. It always appears to be white fans who are sort of engaging in these behaviors with these Black athletes, because the majority of the people in the stands at these games are white. So statistically speaking, the likelihood that it is a non-white person who is going to be wrapped up in these sort of incidents is very low, because white people still retain the majority of the discretionary and disposable income that you need in order to be able to engage in the leisurely hobby of attending NBA games in the first place. Black people, by and large, can't afford to go to an NBA game, so it ain't gonna be us hurling stuff at fans. Latino Americans, likewise, they're climbing the socioeconomic ladder at a rate much faster than we as Black folks are, and that's a conversation for another video. But nevertheless, statistically speaking, they also retain a significantly smaller piece of the generational wealth pie, to the point where it's less likely that you're going to see them hurling things at an NBA player during an NBA playoff game because they can't afford to go to these games either. By and large, you have white people mostly who can afford to go to these games. It's very simple calculus. Whoever retains the majority of the generational wealth, the lion's share of that piece of the pie, is what you are going to see reflected in the stands at these events because it is expensive to engage in these hobbies. As a result of all of this, optically, it will appear as though there is an undertone of race because you have white guy throwing a water bottle, white guy tossing popcorn at Russell Westbrook, white guy. I don't even know if it was a white guy who did the spitting at Trae Young. They didn't show that person's face; they just showed the spittle. And I'm assuming that it was white people who were, yelling racial epithets allegedly at Ja Morant's family in Utah during a Jazz Grizzlies game. But optically, it just doesn't. Optically, it's easy to make the case that these are incidents involving racially motivated people because it's always going to involve white people and black players for the most part because in the stands what you have mostly is white people because it is mostly white people who can afford to go to these games. It's an interesting lens through which to view the current state of economic depravity and socioeconomic standing by when it comes to the acquisition of disposable income, discretionary income, the way that still stands in this country, the complexity of that, how that currently looks. This gives us a great opportunity to understand that whoever has the money is going to be the ones who engage in these hobbies. That still it remains to be white folks, Caucasian Americans. Now, that's not to suggest that what we have is a widespread societal issue. So, let's not get carried away. There were 17,000 people who were in the stands at TD Garden during that playoff game where that kid threw that water bottle at Kyrie Irving, my good buddy Kyrie Irving. 16,998 of them acted accordingly. You just had these two assholes who decided that they were going to take it upon themselves to exercise their right to be fans in whatever warped reality they believe that was an exercising of their fanhood. And the other incident in Boston regarding somebody who engaged in assault and battery towards a police officer. So that didn't involve a player. But, the kid who hurled the water bottle at Kyrie Irving, he's being prosecuted, and rightfully so. He received a lifetime ban. But having said all of that, I want to address the shorter issue of whether these incidents are racially motivated. And the answer to that question is I honestly don't know. And I don't think anyone else knows. I think that if you go into these situations with your preconceived bias, then you'll always be able to affirm to yourself whether these incidents were racially motivated or not. If you are somebody who always sees the racism in everything, then you probably do think that this was racially motivated. And if you're somebody who is always quick to defend against the idea that there's racism inherent in everything, then you're probably going to say these issues weren't racially motivated. I do know that there were a lot of people in the stands in Boston who pointed out who threw the water bottle, and a lot of those people who pointed that kid out were also white people. So let's try to tailor that conversation about whether these incidences are racially motivated or not and be more responsible, because you don't want to alienate a bunch of good-natured people who aren't black or even a minority, but who do see the level of disgust inherent in a particular sort of behavior like that and are willing to point it out when they see it. I'm not in that guy's head. I'm not in any of these people's heads. I don't know whether they're racially motivated or not, and neither do you. You don't know. You don't know that kid personally. So the truth is, you have an opinion, but you actually don't know whether the incidences are racially motivated or not. But what I will say is these situations represent yet another way that I see our society becoming more and more decadent and degradations by the day. Um, there's always been a contentious relationship between fans and professional athletes for a long time. And there's this notion on the part of fans who would defend bullshit like this that, these players are in privileged positions and so they should just accept what comes with it. They're getting paid millions of dollars to play a sport. That sort of lazy logic really will have me cuss somebody out if you come to me with that, because it insinuates that there was no work inherent in an NBA player being given the opportunity to play at a professional level. Um, Please understand that there is no privilege inherent in an NBA player status as a professional basketball player. Same with the rest of these professional sports. Whatever the media tells you, whatever your friends tell you, these guys are not privileged. Something that you have to work to earn is inherently not a privilege. It is something that you earn through hard work. These guys bust their ass and they work tirelessly to reach the pinnacle of their profession and earn as much as they can possibly make during the very short window in which they are allowed to make it. Because of the work that they put in, they aren't in a privileged position. They earn that. They earn that spot. They got there because they worked hard. So it does not give you the right to engage in acts of dehumanization by throwing things at them because you perceive them to be people who are performing for you, akin to animals in a circus. They're human beings. They're not in a circus. You cannot engage in acts of dehumanization. And you might not think throwing a water bottle at an NBA player is a dehumanizing act. It most certainly is a dehumanizing act. You wouldn't want me walking up to your job and throwing a water bottle at your face. Okay, if any of y'all got kids, I'll walk into Publix, a Chick-fil-A, or wherever your daughter works, to earn a little extra money on the side while they're in high school, and I'm gonna spit at them and tell me you won't have a problem with that, because you would. These guys have worked to earn that position. They got there through hard work. They earned it. It is not a privilege. It is a right earned through hard work. And even if it was a privilege, human decency accords that you don't dehumanize another person. I don't give a shit who it is. It can be the richest person who won the lottery and didn't have to work a day in their life. You don't hurl stuff at them. It is an act of dehumanization. But we have got to get over, not we, because I do think that this is a small segment of the population who ain't built nothing, who haven't earned anything, lazy, unintelligent, bitter, and resentful people who are jealous of pro athletes because they get to earn millions of dollars more in a year than they'll ever make in their sorry lifetimes. And they're doing it by playing a sport. And so they think that they're somehow emboldened to be able to engage in acts of dehumanization against pro athletes. And you don't have that right. And really what you deserve is an ass whooping. But unfortunately, we live in a society in which if a player actually gives you what you deserve and whoops your ass, they would be in more trouble than you would be for initially engaging in the dehumanizing act in the first place. But me personally, if Russell Westbrook had gotten loose and went Ron Artest on that kid on that person who dumped that popcorn on him, I would have been cheering because that person deserves to get their ass whooped. That kid in Boston throwing that water bottle, he deserves to get his ass whooped. And anybody else who desires to do stuff like that at these sporting events, you people are the entitled people. You people think that you are above reproach because you exist in a social bubble where you perceive yourself to be free of consequence for doing something like this. You're insulated and you're protected because you know that if these black players come up on you, they'll be in more trouble than you are. And so they're not going to do it. And so you feel protected to engage in acts of dehumanization. One of these days, Malice in the Palace is going to happen again if the NBA doesn't work with these local authorities and officials to develop a clean policy for how to deal with these situations. And when that day happens, whichever one of y'all it is that gets, a right hand, caught across the jaw because you thought it would be funny to throw something at a player, I'm going to be laughing as I sit there watching you get your ass whooped on my couch. And personally, I can't wait to see it. So we got to get out of this mindset that, this notion that because you pay to be in there to watch these games gives you the not even the right. It's just it's sort of it sort of it gives you a protected status of someone who can do this and not face any consequences. Well, now you guys are starting to face consequences. And the more these things take place, the more severe I hope those consequences get. But taking it back to the original premise, um, people, this is all about economics. Just the social justice stuff that that we have going on, the ongoing fight to stem the tide of racial inequality, all of these issues that we talk about, some of these more important cultural issues and societal issues going on, it gives us a lens through which to view modern economics. It truly does. And what I see is that optically, these issues are racial issues, but they're racial issues because the people who are actually able to comfortably engage in these hobbies of leisure are white people, because by and large, from a statistical standpoint, they retain the discretionary income and the generational wealth that makes it easy for them to be able to comfortably go to NBA games. I don't know. I don't have a diaspora of what the demographics of season ticket holders for NBA franchises is, but I'm willing to bet if there is such a thing, Caucasian Americans, white Americans are going to be the singular group that comprises the lion's share of season tickets for various franchises in professional sports, in particular the NBA and definitely the NFL. I don't even think I need a sheet to know that that's what it looks like in the NFL. So, on the front end, on the back end, rather, it's going to look like these are matters of race, but really they're matters of economics, which are rooted in race. And so the more that we kind of pierce the veil and look at the nuance of these situations, the more we understand that, I think that it can give us a greater degree of clarity when we're trying to make sense of why all of these sorts of things tend to look one particular way. So that's pretty much all I'll say about that. And again, man, are these issues racially motivated? I don't know. I can't say that they are, but I also cannot say that they're not. I am not in these people's heads. And to anybody who wants to always jump to the defense against the idea that these issues are racially motivated, I say the same thing to you. You don't want to think that everything involves race because you want to believe that we're in a post-racial society. So it makes you feel better to believe that these issues aren't racially motivated. And, they might not be. But again, you don't know. So you don't know that they aren't, and you don't know that they are. You're not in position to make that judgment unless you know these people personally. And y'all don't. Therefore, you can't make a judgment one way or the other. So that's pretty much what it boils down to. This honestly gives us another opportunity to understand how critical the pursuit of economic freedom is to changing the complexity of America. The more Black people that can become $500,000 million plus median household income annually, the more Black people or Latino people who can become $150,000 median annual income, or mean generational wealth per year, 500,000 plus. The more amongst the ranks of those different groups you can have non-white people, the more non-white people will be in the stands at NBA games. And the more there are non-white people in the stands at NBA games, the less like a racially motivated incident these situations are going to appear to be. But until we make the crowds at NBA games less racially homogenized, the more we are going to see these things. And the more that you make them, the way that we can work to make them less racially homogenized is, it sounds simple. I know it's easier said than done, but it is by staying on a purpose and truly focusing on attaining economic freedom. I'd love to see more Black people be season ticket holders in the Miami Heat. There aren't that many of them because it's expensive, and Black people still don't have enough of the money. So, the sooner we get some more of the money, the sooner we can fill these seats, be in these arenas, the less likely these incidents are to take place, because it'll change the complexity of these fan bases. It'll change the complexity of income attainment in this country, which changes the complexity of America, period. The reason why these politicians and these people on Capitol Hill And people who are paid to serve you in Congress and in the House of Representatives and all of that, the reason why they don't really care about disenfranchised communities isn't because they don't acknowledge their existence per se, but it's because those communities can't impact the economic flow of America, and they view you as worthless as a result. And they're going to continue to do that until you decide that it's more important for you to seek economic freedom in whatever way that you can choose to make that happen. I'm not here to give you a blueprint for how to make it happen. I'm here to say that that's what the priority needs to be. So until that is the priority, this is what you get. Dumbass fans in Boston who think that they are emboldened to throw water bottles at my good buddy Kyrie Irving. And I got my differences philosophically with Kyrie, but he's a human being. He is to be respected. You do not engage in acts of dehumanization against these guys, period. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say about, what's going on with these stupid ass fans out here throwing this stuff at these NBA players, man. The NBA might have an issue on its hands where it's going to need to develop a hard and fast policy with local authorities on how to handle these types of situations. Because 4 or 5 incidents over the span of a week, that's a trend more so than a crazy set of coincidences. And if you have a trend on your hands, you're going to have to figure out a way to stem the tide of that trend, or you can be running into some serious issues down the road, a la the malice at the palace. So think about it, man. This is about economics. It always has been, and it always will be. Always think about it from the standpoint of economics. But that'll do it for the commentary in this video. If you like the commentary in this video, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on Facebook, hit the like button, hit the share button. Comment wherever you see the video. Let me know where I'm going wrong, right? If I'm stupid, it doesn't matter to me. It's all good. I just like making videos. Follow the Conscious Approach page on Instagram at Conapproach, CONAPPROACH. You can follow Conscious Approach also on Facebook. Conscious Approach, spell it out. You can like the page, follow the page, all of that good stuff. You can follow me on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. I'm also on Facebook at Javis Ogden. You can also find me on Twitter at Javis Ogden, but you can also search at JVWins as well. So again, man, until the next video, I appreciate the support. Keep grounding them out. Keep banging them out. I hope everybody is having a great day, a great night, a great weekend, whenever you happen to watch this video. And until the next time, I will most certainly see you on the flip side. But until then, I'm out. Peace.